And we're back. So, last time on A Crown of Cold Iron, our heroes recuperated from a nasty brawl with a conjured magical rapier turned metallic fey assassin. After they had a chance to regain some health and spell slots, they went off to meet with Lady Bryn and start discussing the bombshell revelation that there is a massive portal forming underneath the Queensboro neighborhood of Little Sylvain. Lady Bryn was stunned by the size of this nascent portal, but also perhaps had a little bit more clarity than you all on the political ramifications, not just of the portal, but of the figures who might be returning to the political stage. Of course, not knowing that she was sitting across from one of them. So we kind of left you all in an ambiguous place. Would you all like to continue to talk to Lady Bryn, or do you want to sort of head off for your next plot thread you want to pull at?
Speaking of pulling at plot threads, I believe I also mentioned that when she talked about people picking sides, whether the leaders would want it or not, or even be aware of it or not, I think I did absent-mindedly pluck at the threads that are connecting me to the Kingsguard.
Yes, Auric has been discovering that his newly reawakened. The terminology is a little strange. Past life is maybe the closest to his newly reawakened past life as Bran the Raven King has inadvertently connected him to even some of the most despicable figures in town who have been throwing themselves into the iconography of Bran that has been co opted by some of the humanist groups, which lends some credence to some of Bran's concerns. It's not just that, it's not just the immediate political implications or what these leaders might choose to do, it's the way in which their presence activates a kind of bond that Archfey seem to exude, even though Bran is not actually an Archfey. Although now that line is extra blurry. So, I'll throw the same offer that I have the last few weeks. We've got a lot of different plot irons in the fire. If you're not sure how you want to advance one, but that's where you want to go, let me know, and we'll sort of lay out the options.
I think I'd also want to ask Brennan about any resources for trying to track down Roland and or Caleb. Especially raising concern that whoever was behind some of the stuff with Blake might be connected with Caleb.
She sort of ponders it for a second. This, after you sort of explain what's been happening with Caleb, she says, the good news is that he's obviously not in the same weight class as some of the other things you are facing. There is a strange function of Fey magic, though, that it is often creatures in sort of the middle range, not the nearly mindless sprites and motes and elemental creatures, nor the archfey, but the creatures in the middle who are in some ways more resistant to summoning and binding and seeking spells. That being said, I might have some resources. An energy signature that unusual should be registering in some places. This Beach King oddly might actually be easier to find. If he is who you suspect that he is actually more susceptible to certain powerful rituals that can at least call him to a place. You might not like what happens after you have called him, but as long as you have the proper ritual and the proper materials, it will be almost impossible for him to ignore you. So she does something wild. She like pulls two pens and two pieces of paper out and writes two different notes at the same time.
Dang.
One of them is instructions for a ritual. You're kind of reading it upside down. It's a fairly complex ritual, and it's one that will require some unusual components. Excuse me. The other, she writes off very quickly. It just seems like a note. And then she snaps her fingers. And the note goes through a sort of rapid fire crumpling and then sort of a self origami and unfolds into a bird. And she sends it flying out. It doesn't even bother to open the door. It just becomes like paper thin again and through the edge of the door frame, and then you see it refolding itself and flying off. So she finishes this list and shows it to you, and there's a couple of components to it. It's surprisingly simple, but simple is not the same as easy. It's going to take a lot of power. You're going to need either some substantial spellcasters or something to amplify a spellcaster. There's some exotic materials listed. And mostly they are materials from Fairy. Just for fun, give me an Arcana check.
Yep. Off to a great start. I got a 7.
No.
Youch.
I rolled an 18.
Wait, what are the butterflies for?
I knew that was going to happen. As soon as he rolled a 7, I was like, I'm going to roll real well on this one.
So I think maybe it just sort of comes into your mind in sort of an offhand way. It's not that you like look at it and some like deep specialized knowledge comes out,
Oh, never.
but basically it just hits you like, I wonder if the Blackthorns would know like substitutes for some of these things.
They seem like crafty, smart people.
She says, so this ritual, there are a couple of downsides to this. This ritual will do nothing to protect you once you have summoned him. So your intentions are going to need to be crystal clear, and you're going to want to have a plan of what happens next. This is in the range of human social interactions. If the lowest end is sending a text that says, hey, you busy, This is standing in the street outside someone's apartment screaming their name at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Or, that John Cusack scene with the boombox over the head. Maybe that's a little more cultured and polite.
I was gonna say this is fundamentally a rude form of contact.
Yep.
And we're gonna try and contact the Raven King with this? Is that what we're trying to do?
No.
No.
The Beach King.
Beach King.
We also could just stand in the streets and yell at him.
Okay.
We know his apartment.
That's true.
This is true.
For a second, I thought we were talking about like somebody new, and I thought that was gonna end up with some really funny things because we were gonna put you in like another room and see how it worked. And I was looking forward to that.
We could do that to experiment with how the ritual works, but there's some expensive components in here.
Yeah. It's a little expensive to just test drive it at random, but man.
It's also a little unclear how it would work for Bran. Just because what this takes advantage of is this sort of rule-bound traditions of fairy that have metaphysical power.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just custom, it's not just social mores. Those things are baked into the magical fabric that makes up fairy and makes up all of the fae. It might still be odd with Roland because of his unusual composition, but this kind of ritual wouldn't necessarily work for someone like Bran. Now, if someone tried to conjure up like the ghost of Bran, that could have very unusual effects.
Ow, ow, ow.
Another issue with this ritual.
Disappointed that we can't.
Another issue with this ritual is that it is in fact quite loud. Others of sufficient power will know what you are doing and who and what you are trying to call. And it will have a powerful draw on the less substantial spirits of summer. The sprites and pixies and motes and elementals, they will hear it as a siren call.
Mm-hmm.
They will probably arrive in a hostile state.
And of course, beating upon them would not do us any favors with him.
Right.
I mean, I think Oric, would know this. Well, you would know that you wouldn't know. Archfey are running on a very different morality scale. And the ways in which they might take offense from something like that would be very different from a person. From a human being. So that will help you to do something. I hesitate to hand you this. But I do so in part to underline the severity of the alternative. I don't know. This won't do anything directly to stop the portal from forming, but it might at least give you a chance to maybe end up on the same page about what happens next. From what I remember, Roland was... he was a very sensible person. He cared mostly about keeping his neighborhood safe and the people in it. But with a blurring of spirits like this, I don't know if those things hold true anymore. To say how much is who he was before and how much is the Beach King is beyond me to say. However, finding this young Caleb might be more immediately reachable. And you hear a sound of paper sliding between the door, folding itself back. It hits the ground in the shape of a folded paper squirrel and runs up onto the table and then flattens itself back out.
I like that it shows a squirrel.
So she glances over the paper and says, with the information you provided, there is unusual teleportation magic happening all across Queensboro. It does seem like there's some kind of model to it. We might be able to anticipate one of the places he might be in the near future if you wish to have a chance to intercept him.
Not a bad idea.
Probably not.
Yeah, I'm not sure I want to do anything loud with Roland.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it in front of Lady Bryn, but I do have another idea. It's not loud, but it's probably stupid.
I'm not surprised. Does not surprise me in the slightest to hear that it's maybe not loud, but stupid instead.
Is there anything else you would like to hear from her before you go about your business?
Nothing I can think of.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else.
All right. In that case, Lady Bryn says, I will do what I can. I'll have the information sent to you on this pattern of magic. Let me know when you are close to performing the ritual, and I will do my best to blunt some of the effects it will have on Queensboro and the Fae that reside within it. And saying that, she takes her leave.
Okay.
So what's Oryx's plan?
That's a dumb question. Bran probably had like a royal seal or something, yes?
Yeah.
That would make sense.
So here's Oryx's dumb plan.
You want to send a letter?
Write him a note. that just says, "We need to talk," put the seal on it, and then go wait by the portal.
That's certainly a less disruptive way to do it.
So you're saying fully in, instead of doing this ritual.
Put the note in his apartment and then just sit by the portal and wait.
So give me, all of you can, well, so Lexi and Cyrus can roll history, or it can roll history or arcana.
Oh, it's the same either way. Nat 20, so that's a 25.
All right. Well, that resolves itself. So you immediately, as you think of this, you remember that there is a seal of the Raven King, like the actual iconography itself.
Ooh.
Parts of it are actually adapted into things like Kingsguard imagery, which is part of what set up the strange resonance that you've been able to manipulate. What you instantly remember as you think about it, though, and I say remember, it's truly like you've known it all along, and it just suddenly like occurs to you again. The
Like
seal that you could create, the image has power, but there is a physical artifact that is the seal of the Raven King. The former might catch his attention, maybe, but it's an image that floats around town, and even you sort of marking it yourself would only give it a fraction of the identity, authority, and power. If you were to retrieve the actual seal, that the seal in your hand would be incontrovertible proof to people who know what they're looking for. And if you were to use that to seal a letter, that would be a comparable magical call if you were to address it to someone who knew Bran.
All right. And that's probably going to be a little bit less loud than this ritual.
Yes, that would be sort of hyper specialized. It's what it's for.
So I'm assuming that there's only two different places this physical seal could be. Either in the museum that is the old palace, or in the old palace that we entered it through the sewers.
So I'm going to throw the option to you all. This is your chance to contribute to world building.
Fun.
Would you rather have another chance to dungeon delve beneath the Raven Palace? To which I add, there are more things under there which you all had not retrieved on your previous trip. Or would you rather have a heist during which you will steal... I mean, truly, this is stealing the Declaration of Independence. This is stealing the crown jewels.
I think we're going to be smarter if we go with the dungeon diving.
That is the smarter option.
I mean,
rather than a heist.
I'll tell you
the
this.
heist would be entertaining, I'm sure.
They're just different kinds of bad and dangerous ideas.
Yeah.
Like, it's just choosing the flavor you want. Because the Great Raven is still down there somewhere.
That's true.
And you could have some time to think on it as well.
I think the big question is Cyrus, since Cyrus was our infiltrator expertise.
Yeah, I mean, Dungeon Delve seems more like combat dangerous, and like heist seems more like if you get caught, narrative dangerous.
Lady Bryn, can you post bail?
I have 104 hit points now. I'm gonna take my chances on
combat.
On combat.
What's your stealth score, Lexi?
My stealth score? That's a good question.
I got a +2.
You have a +2. So do I.
I mean, the flip side is that at level 9, you all are probably in the 50 strongest things in the city at this point.
It's true. But it's what those other 50 are.
Number 1 is bureaucracy.
Well, I mean, yes. Yeah.
I mean, you also have the option to just blow the lid off the whole thing, metaphorically, by walking in and reconnecting with the seal in its display case in the middle of the museum.
Holy blow your cover. Your secret identity is Arc Darlanton.
It would certainly kick the game into a different phase, for sure.
Yes, they would.
I wasn't intentionally hiding it until Lady Bryn started panicking.
That's true. You just weren't really advertising it.
Yeah.
But now that you saw her panic, you're like, oh, I'll keep it to myself then.
Yeah.
I mean, you're welcome to take big swings. It would certainly open all kinds of doors for you.
As entertaining as that would be.
Oh my.
What's my wisdom score again?
Probably not high enough.
Wisdom of 10. I feel like I'm not dumb enough to just go grab the seal in front of everybody.
That's true.
And I think you do feel for a moment there is a weight to it that is a little hard to just step past. You're not overwhelmed, but you do remember from that sort of firsthand perspective this young Bran, totally out of his depths, essentially taking command of the kingdom after his father's death, when he was not prepared, when he was not powerful enough. There's certainly a something resonates there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I tell you what we can do. We can go take another a tour of the museum, and Cyrus can look around and decide if it's plausible for us to take it or if we want to go back into the sewers instead.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, say that again.
We can go just be tourists again, and Cyrus can look at all the angles and decide if he thinks that it's plausible for us to try and nab it either then and there or in the night, or whether it would be better for us to go into the weird metaphysical space of the sewer.
Yeah, but how close might you get to it before it starts calling to you?
Well, it didn't last time.
That's true.
Granted, I don't remember how close we got to it last time.
Yeah, I don't know. I just kind of have this like image of you walking in the doors and
the seal just breaking through its case and flying
I mean,
at me.
not necessarily like that obvious, but like it glowing sort of thing. Like, and as you get closer, then it like
there could be some like anime special effects happening.
If I see it glowing, I'll walk away.
I just know how stories work. I'm thinking plot device, okay?
Well, and here's what I'll say to embody the indecision of the moment. There is a fragment of the seal, an echo of the seal, that was used to seal the Raven Palace. So there's a part of that power, and it would be enough for what you want to do. The physical artifact itself is one of the central exhibits of the museum. Reclaiming the physical artifact would immediately draw the fragment into it and restore it. So you could get by for now, but even if you don't go take it now, it's going to be there waiting for you.
Let's go say hi to the Great Raven.
Yeah, I think that's our best bet for starters, because I think even more so than getting caught in a heist, it's getting your secret identity.
Having the
I mean, it's you. Yeah, it's you going in there and screaming, "I am Iron Man." I mean, it's
Yeah. John Cyrus the character is probably up for the heist, but John the player doesn't want to have to plan a heist. If the heist can be done through dice rolling, I'm good with that. But I don't want to have to.
I mean, I think we can scheme. we can steal some notes from something like Blades in the Dark, and like flashbacks.
Yeah.
So you're not having to like plan it all out front.
Okay.
You're able to say like, oh yeah, I knew this. I learned about this, so I would have done this.
Yeah.
Spend one of my points to, and that's why I have this rope with me.
Yeah. That way you're, it is punishing to plan a 5th edition heist.
Yeah.
It either has to run on rails and be sort of both genius and dummy proof. Because if it's executed too well, it's not fun. But also, so like things have to go wrong somewhat. But also, if you're terrible, you can't have it like break the whole heist, or it's also narratively unsatisfying. I like the Blades approach of like failing forward, being able to rely on the character's foresight and not just trying to like squeeze out the player's brains like it's an escape room.
Yeah, I still think the sewer option is probably narratively better as well.
And more fitting to our style as characters.
Yeah.
We've done some dungeon diving.
Sure.
All right. So what I'd like to throw out then is we've got theoretically like 40-ish minutes. I do not have this thing that we just decided to do fully ready to go. So
understandable.
Are there preparations you would like to make? Are there small scenes you would like to do? I know there's a lot of like little outstanding things, and we can even say that some of this has happened over the last couple of weeks just to get us up to speed. This would be a good time to, for example, did you all ever end up making any upgrades to lose?
I don't know that I have. We should.
Because I thought that you all came out of... Didn't you all manage to come out of the Cawthorn Allen Taryn Smith office with some kind of energy core?
I think so, yeah.
I think at one point there was a plan to use it to do some upgrades.
Yeah.
You also have 25,000 gold to invest in new items or to uncurse some of the items that you have. You also have a lot of pieces of lambton.
Yeah.
And you also have several items to identify that, both from before and things that Cyrus pulled out of the bag. So we can take care of some of our bookkeeping here.
Yeah. All right, what? Trying to remember what else hasn't been.
So you should have the rapier, the amulet, and the boots
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. I can't remember if there's anything else to identify besides that. I mean, I think technically maybe we never, I can't remember if we ever fully identified the plates, but those are gone. So,
And you ended up keeping the. You said you'd had the long sword on you, right?
yeah.
The Blood Moon blade.
Yeah.
I have almost 60 pages of homebrew on D&D Beyond. It is becoming less and less easy to go find things.
Yeah.
The monk group is going through an incredible amount of items.
Yes, we are.
Oh, I just realized I have two different versions of Lambton's rapier with
Well
wildly
done.
different abilities.
Yeah. So in terms of getting the last lock undone on Lambton's bag and getting those things identified, is any of that something we could just pay somebody for,
Yeah.
or are we spending a couple days? Can I just do if we're spending a couple days, I can just do the magnifying glass a couple more days on the items.
I would say the identifying you can easily take care of.
Okay.
The last lock, getting some help would be good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Sarah's got that feeling that like we got a little lucky. Don't want to have it blow up in his face.
Yeah.
I should just start feeding you all monk loot.
He'd probably roll with it.
Give Lexi the sword that Snicked had.
All right, I think that's all those items. So you could go get the Blood Moon blade uncursed. I'll go ahead and drop in some of these new items. Oh. Which I also definitely made two of. Excuse me. So, you use Identify on this sort of gaudy amulet that Lord Lambton had. This is a brooch of many sizes. As an action, a willing creature wearing the brooch can cast the Enlarge/Reduce spell on itself by turning the dial towards either the larger or smaller figure adorning the sides of the brooch. Once this ability has been used, it can't be used again until the following dawn. The creature can choose to overload the brooch as a bonus action once the spell has been cast by forcibly twisting the dial beyond its normal limits. When it does, the creature size changes by an additional category, growing either a second size larger, as if the enlarged spell had been cast a second time, or a second size smaller, if it had cast the reduced spell. The size can't become larger than huge or smaller than tiny in this way. When a creature returns to its original size after overloading, it can't move or take actions until after its next turn. Once the brooch has been overloaded, it can't be used again until 7 days have passed. And there must be a typo in the original text. Yep. Oh well. So that's the brooch.
I just had an image of Lexi twisting that dial and growing to troll size.
Roar!
Lexi the hill giant if she overloads it.
I'd look up the name of the boots. There we go.
And of course, the enlarge spell also increases your weapon damage.
Yep. So the boots. You identify the boots that came out of the bag. They are Wind Riders. While wearing these boots, you can use an action to speak their command word to cast the Gaseous Form spell, transforming yourself into a swirling cloud of vapor and leaves. This version of the spell lasts for up to 1 minute, but only allows you to float vertically using your movement speed. Your horizontal movement speed while in this form is decided by the direction and speed of the wind. A wind of light speed propels you 10 feet per round, whereas a wind of moderate or greater speed pushes you 20 feet instead. And both of those are from Griffin's Saddlebag. All right, what else do y'all want to do? Oh, you got the rapier too, right?
Yeah.
The rapier is... I might tweak this and add something else to it, but... the rapier is the Monarch Rapier. Appropriately. It has a butterfly motif. It actually looks almost exactly like the special strange fey touches to Stultus's magic when he was in Lambton's service. It has that same sort of crystalline butterfly motif. It has the following properties. And it does require attunement. It's a very rare item. You have a +2 bonus to attack and damage rolls made with this magic weapon. You can choose for it to deal psychic damage instead of piercing damage. On a hit, the weapon deals an extra 1d6 psychic damage. While attuned to the Monarch Rapier, you have proficiency with rapiers, and you can use your Charisma modifier instead of your Strength modifier for attack and damage rolls made with this weapon.
Nice.
So what else is on the to-do list?
Well, assuming we take just a little time before we decide to go to the Raven King's Palace, that means that I will have time to go to the Blackthorns and be like, hey, I learned this new spell. After learning the new spell.
Your summoned draconic spirit?
Yes.
And what are you wanting to show them about it?
I don't know. I just want to show it off to Vela. But also, I feel like this is probably the first instance in a while where role-playing the learning of the spell makes sense, because sorcerers tend to just pick up new magic along the way, and I feel like Bran has been asserting himself, and perhaps a little bit of Auric is coming back.
Yeah, so I think there's a little bit of '80s movie training montage, not necessarily happening now, but sort of showing you all sort of consolidating the things that you've learned through the sort of adventures you had, and also just having chances to pick up new skills. So we see a little bit of Lexi maybe going and visiting some of the fight clubs with Tyler and Banner while they're while they're waiting for their establishment to be fixed. They go and get into some matches other places and drag you along. And we see Lexi both in some sort of classic like barehanded brawling, but also some more sort of no holds barred fights with supernatural entities where the brewer's mallet is brought out to full effect. And across this sort of multi-week window, we see the hero light getting a little bit brighter with every fight, a little bit clearer, a little bit more focused. We see Cyrus. Would Cyrus intentionally seek out training?
Um, yeah, maybe with Alex and Sana to try to get a deeper handle on Raven stuff.
So I think we see almost some sort of modern Batman esque moments of Mort opening up these unusual safe houses, some of which seem to have some extra dimensional space to them, and basically throwing you all into family training. And to someone from the outside, it would be a complete blur. Alex is not quite as fast as you and Mort, but makes up for it with this very shifty deception and illusion based approach. A lot of like you slash or stab through a space and it looks like they're there, and then suddenly they're like they've been on the other side of the room the whole time. Sana unleashing these massive, terrifying swarms of spectral ravens that are filled with negative energy that just like if they even like brush against you, it leaves this horrible black mark, and some of your life force just comes out of you. And Mort is just like walking through it. Like you all are like actively throwing swings at him, and he's just almost at an even it's almost the same thing that Alex is doing, but at just this wild peak level where he's not on the other side of the room. It's just that he's like, like a fraction of an inch further away than you think he is. Or he suddenly like ducks out of the way and you all accidentally like hit each other. But you can see the abilities are improving. What did Cyrus pick up at level 9?
If I am hidden
Ooh,
when I cast a spell, the target has disadvantage on the save.
I think that's perfect. Mort is sort of walking you through integrating more of the magic that runs through you into the specialized sort of stealth combat abilities that you've been trained in. And this is like the perfect synthesis where they start to come together in this unexpected way. And we swipe over, and we see these daily training sessions of Auric and Vela. And there's a whole mix. There's a lot of you two just fighting each other. Because as we've established, very few other Blackthorns can keep up with Vela at this point. And it's very acrobatic. Both of you are very offense specialized.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot of like narrowly dodging like pillars of fire and fireballs and firebolts. You're grasping earth in hand, like jumping up to swipe, and she like backflips over it. Occasionally she brings in her classes and basically just like for specific training exercises, like if you manage to land one hit on either of us, you get an A on this project. And so the two of you have to suddenly dodge like 25 fire bolts. But you can. You're getting to the level now where you remember your first experience at Blackthorn Academy being drawn into this duel setting and not really being up to Vela's level, and you realize you've pretty well caught up to her. And in fact, with these new magics you're sort of working through, you might be starting to pull ahead a little bit, at least in certain areas. And slowly this comes together in this new spell that you've learned. So what does it look like? What's the environment where this unveiling happens?
I think ironically it happens outside of training. Like, 'cause we have, communal treasure from Lambton's hoard, and I think I am showing off one of the pieces to Vela. And just suddenly I look at it and something connects with me. And it's almost as if the magic travels through my eyes, through this art piece, and reflects and creates a spiritual dragon that is a reflection of the art piece.
So I think as this power flows out over the last month or so, man, has it really only been that long that y'all have been back? I guess it's been a little ambiguous, but it's not been really that long. It's very much been about unifying these different strands of power inside you. Because suddenly you've had this whole pool of new experience and magic and power, and you've been trying to figure out how Bran fits into who Auric is. And so there's been a lot of movement towards bringing it together. But you've made huge strides there. That's part of why you've sort of bumped up a level. Just your sheer magical power has improved as you've brought it under control. And now you realize that with this greater level of control, your spells actually become sort of prismatic. You can use them to unite or to split apart these different strands of magic. And so as you cast this draconic spell, what does the dragon look like that you summon?
I think for this first time, it looks like Lambton, except made out of quartz.
So is this is probably the gem form?
Yeah.
So it comes out in this very powerfully sort of fey dominant magic. It's resplendent. There's you see some of that same, almost down to the mist pouring off of it very gently. This sort of beautiful, multicolored as the light hits the quartz, and there's a trace of that sort of resplendence that Lambton cultivated. But as you cast it, you can see in your head other shapes this could have taken. you see a dragon that truly just looks like a traditional metallic dragon, but it has Oryx's exact sort of pattern of gold and silver scales. You also see something else lurking in the back. It's very similar, but where the other two are brilliant and shining with sort of different sorts of power, this one is dark and intimidating. It doesn't even look fully like a dragon. The scales taper in strange ways that almost have a feathered quality to it. And it is this beautiful black dragon, but it has feathered wings and the strange sort of tapered scales and the breath that sort of curls around the edges of its mouth is gray fire. And you feel it sort of lurking in the back of this spell. But there is sort of a little moment of epiphany here. You can feel that these are all you. Maybe in a way that's been hard to put your finger on before. It maybe doesn't feel as much anymore like here's Oryx magic and here's the magic of fairy and here's the magic of it's trying to catch the thumbs up.
There it goes.
It doesn't feel like a splitting anymore. It just feels like parts of yourself. And all of this sort of flashes through your head as this glorious quartz dragon looms up. The body of it is only large, but the presence that it occupies is substantial. For a moment, it is fully as large as Lambton himself was. You actually hear like cries of alarm from other parts of the campus as it suddenly like this sort of spectral resplendence recedes into the quartz body. What does the dragon act like in this form?
Well, I think it's probably going to look around a little confused, like, what am I doing here? But given the inspiration for it, I think it acts a little bit pompous.
So this raises a good question. Is this a fragment of yourself manifested as a dragon through the mechanism of the spell, or are you using your magic as a sort of dimensional lure to pull something from somewhere else that aligns with your magic? Is this thing a real creature unto itself?
Yes, I think it is.
Does it have a name?
That is a fantastic question. I'm sure it does. I don't think it's told me.
I will let you sort of contemplate on that. Vela is sort of entranced at this creature. It doesn't quite know what to make of her. Wherever you have pulled this sort of fey-infused dragon from, it is not a place where there are a lot of humans around. But we'll sort of pull back from there. That way you have a chance to lock in some more details before we develop them too much. So what else would you all want to do before you head into the Raven Palace once more. Any plans? Any preparing? Any
Oh no.
conversations you want to have with folks?
What did you just write? Dreki. Okay. Cool.
It does sound a little bit like I don't know, like an Aussie word for dragon.
Icelandic, actually.
Oh, there we go. Cyrus, is there anything you want to ask Mort since you actually have him to talk to before you go in?
I feel like I should, but I'm not sure.
I'll at least throw you this sort of freebie, some lore information on Mort and the Raven Palace. So over the time that the three of you have been sort of the four of you have been sort of reunited, you've been able to ask more of sort of the questions of where your power comes from and who you are. And I think we had hints of this in your last conversation with Mort. But to sort of stay in the world and to stay in a state where he could continue to serve, Mort has been essentially carving off parts of his Tuathan power, this sort of semi-divine energy. It is a kind of excruciating process, but you see that he talks about it like it's nothing. But you've literally seen like there are tangible physical scars manifested from these. Each time that Mort has created an artifact, it's not just been about making a useful tool, but it's also about fragmenting his power so that he doesn't grow too large too fast. So, Ill Omen, all the different aspects of the Raven Coat, some of the artifacts that Alex has recovered, and some of the stuff you've recovered from the Raven Palace before, all of these were parts of Mort. And that's part of why there's such a strong reaction when you put too many of them together. Because the mass of energy has a will to it. It's a sort of distillation of what it means to be this war raven. This role that Mort has held for countless eons. It would be very dangerous for Mort to go into the Raven Palace. The Great Raven is a manifestation. When he sealed the palace, he cut away the majority of his power and left it there. Not as an artifact, but as a sort of tangible cloud of Mort energy. And that's what the Great Raven is. That's
Mort
why it still
energy.
sort of haunts that space. If he was to go, there's a very good chance that all of that energy would try to snap back to him like a rubber band. He would probably survive, but at the minimum, he would be incapacitated potentially for years or decades And an even worse case scenario, he might lose the current version of himself entirely. He might fully revert to the more warlike version of Mort that you've seen in some of these visions. Or he might just fully become the Great Raven and blast his way out of there and be loose in Queensboro.
Yeah.
All of this he mentions because this is still sort of a concern for Cyrus as well. This is the danger if you absorb too many parts of Mort too quickly, or even just come into contact with them, they could overwhelm you the same way. But they don't have the same magnetic pull to you as they would to him. Not on the same scale. Anything else?
Are the is there anything else to know about? Does Mort know anything else about our tri triscale marks?
So those, he actually recognizes that immediately. And this would probably have happened. I mean, probably as soon as you saw, as soon as he saw it. So, because we've determined it's not fully manifested all the time. I think maybe. Do you want Mort to have seen this, or what sort of way do you want to sort of frame this?
Hey, Mort, what do you know about this?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think so. I don't think Cyrus would. I don't think he's being coy about it. I think he would explain last time they ventured when they found Sana.
Mm-hmm.
This happened, and if Mort's explaining this bit about his power and being connected to the palace, Cyrus would immediately wonder if it's also connected to Mort or something else.
So he immediately recognizes that it is a mark of the Phantom Queen. Some of the sort of deep theology of it that has been buried is that this Phantom Queen is sometimes understood as a three-part entity. That it's not one goddess, but that it's three goddesses who are sometimes separate, sometimes together, sometimes blurring from one to the other. And as you sort of explain the details of it, his conjecture is that so the Raven Palace was supposed to be sealed. It was supposed to be inaccessible. But as the seal has broken down, it's become not just less reliable at keeping people out, but it's also lost some of the specificity. It was essentially only supposed to reopen for him, or potentially Bran if Bran had an occasion to come back. Not that he could have imagined it at that time. But as it got sort of more fluid, it looked for things that had similar energy. there was just enough of a touch of that in some of the hero light in the Kingsguard that some of them were able to slip through. But it recognized it powerfully enough in the three of you to mark you in this way. And the different symbols that each of you have represents the way that this seal understood your connection. Oric's connection is fairly obvious, as is Cyrus's. But for Lexi, one of the things that your research pulled out is that Hero Light has a fragment of the Phantom Queen's power in it. She was one of the original sort of epic powers who came together to create it. And so it recognized it and it gave you a conduit for that power.
Right.
That's how each of you can tap into that energy to save yourself from death. It's a materialized blessing of the Phantom Queen. Anything else?
I think Lexi's probably going to spend some time with her stick and her hound. Or what were the words that I'm trying to remember?
The spear.
The sword. Yeah. No, I'm reading the wrong part. Shoot, where was it?
The broken spear and the booze hound?
Yeah, the hound and the staff. There's why I wrote it down from her dream. Or not her dream, but from her not being alive, totally seen.
So, how exactly do you do this? Like, what's the... what is the sort of way that you're trying to make this connection?
Knowing Lexi, she's probably got this stick in her hand. She's kind of like waving it around like a sword. While watching her mean dog do things.
So you're literally like sort of playing with it, like trying to get it to do something.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a broken spear. Like it's, it shouldn't have been able to do what it did. Lexi's seen some pretty crazy things, but this is still kind of,
Okay,
to her, this was just kind of a stick that came out of nowhere.
This'll be a perfect way to sort of bring us out for this week.
Okay.
So you're sort of playing with it, and it's not doing it. It's just a broken stick, and you cannot figure out why it's just a broken stick.
Mm-hmm.
You wave it around, you mess with it, it does nothing. So you keep playing with it. Brigitte is kind of running around, and I think you hit a point where it's like, this is just not working. There's a moment of sort of exasperation, like, why won't this stupid stick work?
There's a part of me that also just kind of suddenly thought to myself, when did I realize that Brigitte was a dog?
I think that we saw... I think that actually happened when something happened to you.
Okay. Because I know I've had this meat elemental for a while.
Yeah, she's been sort of amorphous, and actually when something happened to you, she became a little more distinct than she was
Yeah.
before.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember when that was.
I mean, it was literally like when you got stabbed. So it was.
Oh, it was when I got stabbed that she kind of became dog-like. Okay.
Mhm.
Because before that, she's just been sort of a blob,
Okay.
like a Final Fantasy slime.
So maybe that's kind of how I start to kind of piece together what I knew from that, especially with the whole dog part, because kind of realized that now this me thing is acting like a dog.
So where are you? Where are you when you're doing this? If you're
Oh,
swinging the spear around,
I'm just probably like downstairs and lose or something.
so maybe you've like pushed some tables to the
In the main
sides to give
dining
yourself room.
Yeah, I mean, I've moved into an area where here I will relocate myself over here.
I don't even have Roll20 pulled up. Actually, I'll tell you, probably like some of the furniture has been moved while some of the damage is being repaired.
Yeah,
So like you've got a big open space that you're doing
yeah.
this.
I'm away from the bar and the tables. If you look on the screen, Auric.
So I think when you hit a point of just like, um, it, Brigitte like rubs up against your leg as you kind of, and as she does, the sort of vaporous condensation of powerful spirits rises off of her, and it sort of you breathe it in for a moment, and you literally have a vision. And from the outside,
I just had a thought. It would have been funnier if I threw the spear and Bridgie went and grabbed it
Fetched it.
and fetched it. Come on, Colby, we got to do that.
I'm sure that that's been happening. Like you've been trying to like get it to lightning up, and you throw it and it just clatters, and Bridget's just like
taking the spear, been playing fetch with the spear.
this happens for a while, and then sort of panting with exertion, this condensation rises up, and you breathe in this like deep, sweet, but with a burn of sort of strong vapors. And as you breathe it in from the outside, it's not the sort of full blown fiery manifestation of combat, but a thin layer of hero light flares up around you. But more importantly, your eyes are wide open and are burning white. And I will allow you to sort of direct your vision here. What do you want to know?
Well,
Is
see,
it-
now I'm curious as to who the dude was because I didn't ask.
Yeah. So you see a younger version. You see a younger version of this dark-haired man that you spoke to, and you actually see kind of a horrifying scene. Um, let's see. Yeah. So you see this boy, and he's maybe just a teenager, and you see him standing in this field with sort of other young men, and they're taking turns throwing these like they're playing some kind of game that you are not entirely clear the rules of. there is some kind of ball. There's some kind of stick that's used.
Oh, so it's cricket.
Not quite.
I was gonna say something that doesn't make sense to Lexi. That would be cricket.
But you see this sort of strange scene of this young boy is invited to this sort of grand house, and as he approaches, this horrifying guard dog is released. This huge, sort of slavering beast. It has to be some kind of magical creature. It's truly like the size of a cow, but with the proportions of a sort of warped, monstrous bulldog. And this beast comes running at it, and he's still carrying this sort of strange sports equipment you've never seen before. And as he realizes this beast is running for him, he takes this ball that he's been using, and he's basically grappling with this creature. He's completely overpowered. You see this beast snapping and biting at him. And he manages to take this ball that they were playing with, and ignoring the harm to his arm, he shoves it down this creature's throat. There are deep gash marks left in his arm as he pulls it out, but the beast immediately starts to choke and to cough, and it can't dislodge the ball. So you see this scene and it sort of fades. And you catch little glimpses of other moments. The boy is older, and you see him practicing, and he's learning some kind of a very aggressive combat from what appears to be a master. And you see something like the spear. He takes it up in his hand, and what you see is not quite hero light. There's traces of something similar. Give me an Arcana check just for fun.
Five. Man, I had all sorts of great rolls earlier.
You're not quite sure what's different. It's not even so much a there's a fiery quality to the energy that you use. This looks almost more like pure light. And it's not as bright or as strong, but as this young man draws his arm back, you see a little bit of this energy flow out of his hand, and as it passes into the spear, you see that same crackling electric energy disperse itself through the spear, and he throws it, and you see it smash through a target, through a stone wall, through another stone wall, and another stone wall. And all this happens just in a flash. And you come back to yourself after no more than like 5 or 6 seconds. And now, as you're holding this spear, you can feel that same energy. You don't know how or why, but now that you've seen it, it's like watching someone else do a trick, and you just know, oh, that's how you do that. And now, as you grab this broken haft of this spear, as soon as you touch it with this energy, the lightning crackles and extends off of its length. Craig sticks his head out. Miss Lexi, are you okay? And you look and see there's a huge scorch mark on one of the walls that is still smoking. And that's where we're going to leave it for the week. We'll come back next week to begin delving back into the Raven Palace to see what can be found, and give you all a chance to recover a fragment of the seal of the Raven King. And with that, I'm going to kill a recording.
Recording stopped.
And kill the stream. Bye, Internet.